It is a pleasure to introduce to you the Spanish National Grants Database. We are going to share with you some features of the Spain State Aid National Register, located on the National Grants Database. So, first thing, Spain State Aid National Register is part of a wider, larger, and longer information system. We call it the National Grants Database. Along our tour, we will follow a flight path where the main waypoints are in 1. General overview of the Spain National State Aid Register. 2. Data analysis performed by General Controller Office. 3. Data analysis performed by others. In order to understand the specifics of our National Grants Database, we should address the not always obvious questions of who, why, when, how much and how many. The General Controller Office, under the supervision of Ministry of Finance, is the internal financial control office for the national public sector. As a control organization, it is in charge of verifying that the economic financial activity of the national public sector conforms to the principles of legality, economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. The control is carried out by ex-ante control of legality compliance, continuous financial audit, ex-post government financial audit and grant audits, on beneficiaries and awards. Perhaps, we are facing the stronger difference with other national registers. The owner, the operator, the organization in charge of state aid transparency is not related to competency authorities, not even with the Ministry of Economy. We will understand later why this singularity. In mid-90s, a perceived lack of control over increasing funds allocated to grants flourished among some leading auditors in the General Controller Office. The absence of proper legislation and procedures on budgets and public expenses in granting activities was the trigger of the concern. A few visionaries started to study and develop ideas about needed improvements on grants control, both over the granting authorities and over the grantees. We were daydreamers, thinking in applying neural networks and some other fancy emergent technologies. But the truth was that we didn't have a single data item then. Obviously, our little control-oriented minds started devising a strong centralized system, stealthy, just the opposite of nowadays open data paradigm. We were auditors. Men in black. Nobody was even thinking on transparency then. Finally, in 1999, the General Controller ordered to develop a grants database and start to gather data from the grantors at national government level. Over the years, it has evolved on hardware, software, procedures, data model, and outcomes. Let us take a closer look at the main milestones. 1999, by General Controller Order, grantors started submitting data on opportunities, calls, plus awards. Scope was limited to national government. 2003, a miracle happens. Parliament, as suggested by Court of Accounts in a thought report, enacted the General Grants Law, setting up specific concepts and definitions, processes, and proper accountability on grants management, awards and audit. Therefore, grants database get recognition at law level. 2007, system integrated regional and local governments, and they started submitting data. Life goes on, until year 2013. Riding on the transparency and open government wave of that moment, the Spanish Parliament passed Transparency and Good Governance Act. At that time, we were thinking on revamping our system with significant updates in software and a friendlier user interface. But transparency law mandated us to disclose the name of beneficiaries and the awarded amount of all public sector grants. A sudden earthquake shook us. Moreover, European Commission passed GBER and other regulations. Double earthquake. We were the logical choice and natural place for setting up the State Aid National Register. We already had the information, we owned the data, just a few attributes of Annex 3 were needed, but also our knowledge of European Union law was superficial. Hit the ground and run, as paratroopers. We had to learn the ropes. The paradigm shift was Copernican. From a stealthy, reserved database, to a public transparency system. From a black hole, always consuming information produced by others, to sharing all data with grantors and almost all with citizens. That means the end of the black hole concept. We went into the Big Bang. Let there be light. 2015, first website release. Scope constrained to data from national government, years 2014 plus 2015. We took this as an experiment for future developments. It was a basic website, but with features needed to fulfill our goal, querying filters, data grid form displaying data, and a basic download component. 2016, Big Bang. Full website with 5 different data views. New data model. New procedures. Added value services to grantors, as web services. July 2016, State Aid View took off. Summarizing. We are in a world of a singular system, owned and operated by auditors and control people. We are in a world of completeness, covering all granting authorities around the whole public sector. We run a dual system, public and private, similar in concept to those operated today by national government in Australia and the United States. Then, let us see our data model. The following slide display, at bird eyes, are information entities and their cardinality. Probably the music sounds familiar to you, because the world of grants is similar all over the planet. As I told you, Australia and United States are not dissimilar. Maybe the only strange thing is the entity criminal court ruling. Let me explain to you. In Spain, criminal law states that some offenses drive penalties other than jail or fines. So there is a criminal penalty in case of fraud, embezzlement, tax offenses, etc., which carries out penalty of disqualifying a person or a corporation as grant candidate for a while. Grants database keeps track of these penalties, reported by the criminal courts, and so any granting authority can, and must, check the candidate's qualification before the granting act. Remember, this is the private, no public, system. Only for granting authorities and legitimate users. The public website mirrored the same data, in a reduced data model, and with limited scope. Therefore, citizens may get transparency data directly from the same systems than granting authorities, and other legitimate users, get management data. To keep the privacy safeguards and taken into account that any person anywhere in the world can access these data, the time scope of the public website is limited to 2 years for natural persons, 4 years for corporations, and 10 years in case of state aid. Also, national identification number for natural persons is blacked out, except beneficiaries owed state aid. Obviously, the goals of this dual system are different. The reserved database goals are fraud busting, public policy analysis, government research, public management improvement. The public website goals are transparency, public policy analysis, academic research and media. And how many visitors we get in our public website. Our analytics shows that in the first 8 months of 2019 we got 870,000 sessions from 590,000 users, serving more than 2.3 million pages. In the graph, you may see an outlier, a strange peak developed in a May weekend. Maybe it was a zombie process sending continuous queries. The IP address told us that it comes from Rome, Italy. How many visitors were interested in state aid? In the same period, almost 21,000 sessions happened visiting the state aid pages, with more than 40,000 served pages. The amount of visitors is increasing. As you may see, in 8 months of 2019 we get almost the same amount of the whole 2018 year. And how many operators are in the reserved database? As today the system has more than 6,700 human users. They can access to more than 38 million awards, awarded to more than 8 million beneficiaries, with a total of 379 billion, English billions, euros, from 1999 to today. And how much money the national database stores. In year 2018, a total of 20 billion euros and 3 million awards to 1.2 million beneficiaries has been registered. From those 20 billion euros, 3.8 billion have been under some form of state aid, notified, exempted or de minimis. Remember, billions are English billions. So what do we do with this vast amount of data? Remember what we told you before, we are auditors. Since the very beginning, auditors have been getting information on individual transactions. Moreover, since 2016, some new approaches based on COSO philosophy of risk analysis and management were developed. We must speak of three different vectors. Standalone analytics, merging and fusion, de minimis annual report. In the standalone analysis, we create hypercube from the data stored in the database, and through dynamic tables, we perform risk analysis by clustering, correlation, plus other statistical tools. In this way, we identify high-risk beneficiaries and awards to be included in the annual audit plan. But we also mix, shaken, not stirred, as James Bond says, our data with other sources, e.g. from the corporate register, from tax returns, from the social security systems, getting indication, probably not audit evidence yet, but clear indications, of troubles in awards and grantees. General Controller Division 5, in charge of grants audits, also prepares and discloses to proper parties a report on de minimis rule compliance by grantees of the national government organizations. This is made sweeping the database data, using the sliding window metaphora. Detected uncompliances are reported to granting authorities accountable for the awards that breaks the threshold. National Grants Database offers web services to granting authorities not only to submit and register data, but also to query the database. Granting authorities may embed those web services into their own systems, automatically asking for grants awarded to a grantee, from date to date. Applicant qualifying status, court ruling or administrative. De minimis accumulation, by grantee, period, and regulation. The Independent Fiscal Authority carried out a spending review, downloading the 2017 data of almost 3 million awards. The Independent Fiscal Authority disclosed the report last June. You can download it at the following URL. Every year tax agency download awards and payments data from the private database. Around 12 billion, English, have been incorporated as year 2018 taxable income from the granting activities. Media uses the website for research regarding grants of political significance, or researching fraud cases. Every week or so, some interesting news springs in the media. There are some others consumers and analysts of our data. As an example, we know that everyday corporate information middlemen services download data, later incorporated in their systems. Probably some of you know Arachne, the tool used by anti-fraud Olaf. We are quite sure that our data ends in Arachne via those middlemen. Thank you. This is the band of sisters and brothers who run the shop, from the business side. Plus a few other IT guys and gals. We take care and nurture every day our systems and data to better serve citizens and governments. Follow us, visit us, or email us.